I don't really like to fight, which makes things kind of interesting how I got into this business, but I've always had a passion for martial arts. I do believe in defending yourself. I do believe in trying to avoid fights if at all possible. Okay, just sometimes you don't have a choice. Most people are pretty surprised to see how angry I can get. I don't like to get angry, but when I get angry, I get angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. I had to go to a Buddhist monastery in order to calm my nerves down because I used to get so fired up. Anybody who's ever seen me get mad, however, acknowledges that I have a good reason for getting upset in the first place, because usually somebody will take my kindness for weakness and try to do things that are out of line. And then once I get to a point where my frustration boils over, it becomes pretty intense. I didn't always believe in God, because this world can be a godless place. There's only been about one time where someone got in my grill and I didn't do anything about it. Perhaps he said it best. The reason why people were hanging out with him in the first place is because they wanted something from him. And there was a time when, like a vampire, I had an unquenchable thirst. I was hanging out with him the whole night, and I was so close to getting what I wanted, I just let it slide. When I think about stuff like that, sometimes it really bothers me, to have that in my memory. But then I think about Genghis Khan, and I think about what a legendary warrior he was, and some of the things he went through. One story that people don't really know about Genghis Khan is that he once lost a battle. And in losing that battle, it cost him his wife. Right? He had to make a decision. Do I go in and save my wife? Or do I leave her and try to get her back at a later time? Right? So he decided to leave her. And she got captured by the warring tribe. When he was able to gather his strength, he got his revenge. Got his wife back, and then raised a child that wasn't his. And then thereafter, that's when he, amassed one of the largest empires ever to exist. And it wouldn't have happened if he went in to save his wife at the time. Right? So, you don't have to fight every battle. Right? I just had another troll. One thing I didn't see coming when I started this Muy Baran business is the fact that there was going to be trolls, right, trying to test me. And there's also been some students that have been trying to test me too. And I'm just trying to run this as a business at this point. And at this age, trying to run it as a business, try not to take it too personal. But at the same time, it's like, if you really want to test me, I'm doing a better job of keeping my temper in check. Okay? Because I can't have a reputation for beating up my students, even though some of those students are asking for it. I've had to have some discipline, and that's what martial arts is all about, is having discipline, right? And being able to restrain yourself. And with the trolls, I'd say right now I'm 2-0 against the trolls because they don't even show up. It's a big waste of my time. My goal is to not do that kind of stuff, and I'm getting too old for that kind of stuff anyway. My window to compete in MMA is getting slimmer and slimmer as I get older. I've been wanting to do this for a very long time, and I just haven't been able to do so because my father got early onset Alzheimer's, and basically I had to come home and be with my family and provide for them by working in the corporate world. It just wasn't possible for me because I needed to work a full-time job, and I had to drive to and from work, which takes about an hour each way in the Seattle traffic. Then I had to come back home immediately, change my father, and feed him for, sometimes it'd take 2 hours to feed him, right? Mentally, that was really rough, very frustrating. My mind during that time when my father was dying was not where it is now. And I'd say, essentially that made me a stronger person going through all that stuff. It's just that at that time, I was really at my weakest point. And I say to all my enemies out there, you should have had me when you had the chance. Because it's going to be a lot harder to get me now. If I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down fighting. I'm trying to get myself in a position to where I can compete in MMA. And I want to compete at a really high level. That's my dream. MMA just became legal in all 50 states as of 2016. Now I can really make a good career out of it. And I'm getting older, but I would say one thing that works in my favor is the fact that I don't have any wear and tear like some of these guys do. Like we saw Diaz fight this last weekend. I mean, they had to stop the fight because his eye was just bleeding so bad, and it's because he's in so many fights that if you flick his eye, it will start bleeding. That's the way I'm looking at it. This is a good time for me to really focus and really look at the long-term goal here, what I'm trying to do here in this next decade. This next decade has to be the best decade in my life. I know what my goals are, and if I'm doing everything I can to try to get there to where I can achieve those goals. And it takes discipline. And that's one thing that I'm learning to do. Going around fighting every single battle is a recipe for disaster. I feel empowered because I'm showing restraint. That's what martial arts is all about. Martial arts means the art of war. The supreme art of war, subdue the enemy without fighting. The reason why I want to fight in MMA is because I'm a competitor. MMA is essentially the one sport that you can fight a chance at fighting, because who really wants to go out and fight? Not a lot of people. It's become more and more popular, but when it comes down to it, guys that actually want to, be really good and get in the cage and pummel each other to death, there's only a very rare amount of people that are wired like that will go through and actually do that, right? And I believe that I'm one of them. Right, that's my goal, is to get to that point. So I'm taking it very seriously. I realize my window is closing, and that's why, just gotta fine-tune some things here, because I'm not going into it to lose. The longest conversation my father ever had with me was about fighting. My dad didn't talk much, but he made it very clear when it comes to fighting, not sparring, not training and things like that. I don't care what happens in the sparring session. I don't care what happens in the training session, because that's the point. That's when you're supposed to try things out, test things out, and essentially put yourself, in more riskier situations, right? So I don't care what happens in a training session or a sparring session, none of that stuff. I'm talking about actually a real fight ready that's organized, or on the street, even, whatever, right? But the conversation I had with my dad was, there's no such thing as losing, right? You're not gonna lose. You can't lose. So when it comes to fighting, I'm not losing. That's why I'm taking my time a little bit here and getting myself prepared as well as I possibly can. I'm looking forward to getting an opportunity to fight at least once before it's all over. I think that's definitely a reasonable goal. Trying to get the best fight possible is also something to that I'm looking forward to, and hopefully some things pan out to where I can actually get the opportunity to fight in the UFC. That's my goal. Getting myself mentally prepared for what that would be like. Mentally preparing myself for that, for the big stage. So I'm looking forward to that opportunity. I think I'm doing a good. My training regime right now is basically about taking punishment. And that's why being a trainer is a great way to train yourself, because you're also learning from your students too. Sometimes they teach me some things, so it's a great thing that I'm going through right now. It makes me feel